So, as you get into more complex app development, you might want to add some animations to your application. Well, Flutter has built-in animation widgets that allow you to do simple animations like moving the widget or changing its size and stuff like that, and you can build out completely custom animations too. So the first question you need to ask yourself is whether the animation you want to make is a drawing or a code-based animation. So the widgets I was talking about where you can rotate or change the size or location, things like that, that is a code-based animation. A drawing animation is something you would see maybe like in a Pixar movie or something like that, or on a very nice website where they have little drawings that are more complicated. Now to do that, you're going to need to use some third-party libraries. It's technically possible to do with Flutter itself, but I would not recommend it because you're going to turn from a developer into a mathematician trying to figure out all these vectors and everything like that. But these code-based ones are actually provided by the whole Flutter framework, and you can do some very complex things with that. And if you do want to make drawing-based animations, I recommend using something called Rive. If you visit the Rive website, you can actually see a couple examples of these. So if you hover at the top here, the Get Started button, you'll see a little cat paw comes out. And then it tries to catch your mouse over here. This is a drawing-based animation. There's some more complicated ones here where you have a whole like starship coming out. And you can even go to click down here and see some of the cool use cases within your applications. So here's like a login screen where this teddy bear closes its eyes when you get to the password. Here's a pull to refresh that you can make your refreshing animations pretty cool, make your app more interactive. Now, I hate to disappoint, but I'm a Flutter developer. I'm not an animation creator. So in the mini project that we're going to be building with Rive, I'm not going to create a whole animation from scratch. But we are going to do this, and I'm going to tweak this animation to make it fit our application better. So what you're seeing here is the Rive online editor. What you do here is actually draw the animation and then give different properties for how you want it to act. So for example, we have this press property. So whenever we press it, it runs our actual animation. And the animation is just a rocket shooting up and then exploding. So we're going to manipulate this design a little bit. And then once you're ready, you're happy with what you have, you go to this little export button and you'll get a .riv file that we can then bring into our Flutter application and then use it there. So we're going to have a whole mini project working on this, but here I want to cover the code-based animations too. So code-based animations are widget focused and they mostly affect layout and style. So let's say we have this container widget and we want to move it over. This is the perfect use case for a code-based widget. And like I said, code-based widgets are provided by Flutter, so you can give actions on any specific widget. But there are two types of code-based animations. There's implicit and then there's explicit. Now, implicit is an easy one. You can tell that it's an implicit animation because the widget you'll be using to create that animation will have an animated at the beginning. So we have animated container explicit animations, we have animated padding and animated followed by whatever. You know that's going to be an implicit animation. And to make an implicit animation work, it's pretty easy. You just update the property and then call setState. So if we're talking about the animated padding widget, let's say we want to change the padding from 5 pixels to 10 pixels. We'll just change that variable to be 5 to 10, call setState, and you'll see the animation happen like magic. And then we have the slightly more complicated explicit widgets. So you can tell that you have an explicit widget because it will be followed by something transition. So for example, we have rotation transition widget, we have size transition widget, and then anything transition. Now, the reason explicit is slightly more complicated is because you actually have to define your own animation. So you will need to use something called an animation controller, and using that, you explicitly define what that animation does. So that's why they're called explicit animations, because you have to explicitly define it. So the implicit one, you just update the property. Explicit, you need an animation controller and you define that animation. So how do you know which one to use and when? There are some questions you got to ask yourself. So first question is whether the animation is looping. That means the animation is not stopping, that it's continuously going on and on just like these arrows. They're bouncing up and down and they're looping and the animation is not stopping. You saw with the first simple container, it just moved over to the right and stopped, while these animations continue bouncing up and down. So this is a looping animation. The next question you want to ask yourself is whether it is discontinuous. For this animation, you see the snowflakes start at the top, come all the way down, and then start back up at the top again and then come down. This is both a looping and a discontinuous animation. The only reason I made it looping is just so we could actually see this example multiple times instead of just missing it once. But this animation comes down, starts back up, so it's discontinuous. It's not going back like the arrows. This is a continuous but looping animation. So you see it goes up and down and it's continuously looping. This is a discontinuous looping animation. The last question you want to ask yourself is, are there multiple coordinated widgets being animated? So see, here we have a square, then it leads directly into the swirl, then a circle, and there's multiple widgets being coordinated, whether it's their time to be animated. So if you answered yes to any of these questions, you should use an explicit animation. And there's one last way to do things if you're having performance issues, and that is using Custom Painter. Now, Custom Painter paints directly to the canvas without using this whole widget tree thing that we learned about in Flutter. Now, I'd use Custom Painter as kind of like a last resort for animations, because like I said at the beginning, if you wanted to use Custom Painter, you turn from a developer into a mathematician. You have to define every vector, where it goes, where it gets animated to. It's definitely a lot more difficult to create animations using Custom Painter, but sometimes that's the only option you have.